Hello there. This is Kat Hobson, and you are listening to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. And speaking of Fate Magazine, as most of y'all know or may know, Phyllis Scaldi, who is our leader of the pack. She is the editor and owner of Fate Magazine, and I do this show because she likes me doing the show. It's her show, and I am so thankful that I have been able to communicate with her up until, you know, a little bit. But just so y'all know, I sent her a message today and said, that was my shoe. I was like, let me know if you're okay, because we talked when all of this stuff first happened. She is outside of um, Asheville, North Carolina, and so I was panic stricken when I saw everything happening there and reached out to her, and she didn't have power, but she did have water and other things. So I sent her a message today because our our tech guru is a musician who's been in Texas through this. He lives there too in North Carolina. And so we had been working on stuff, and he let me know that she was okay when he left. And so I reached out to her today to just like, are you safe? You know, do you need me to come get you? Do you need things? And I just got a message that said yes. I let me. It was yes, I'm good, and all my little animals are okay. And so she still doesn't have power, but y'all have heard me talk about her chasing her goats, and she has chickens, and so she and her animals are still there, and she's supposed to have power this week. So thank goodness for small favors. Now, if we can just keep Milton out of there, and the one coming behind Milton will be better. So, anyway, I am so excited to welcome my guest tonight. This is not his first time here. He is one of my favorite people in the UAP research. He is one of the board members for the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. He was, when I first joined MUFON, he was my MUFON director. He is a consultant with the Army. He is one of the most interesting people. He travels, he adores his bride, and they have so much fun together. He is what we call here in the South the full package. So, and one of the things that I wanted to point out, I wanted to check all of my notes to make sure I didn't leave something out, because this guy is, like I said, he is so busy and he's so awesome. But the Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies, which we're going to talk about, and a lot of other aspects of his work, it's a group of professionals. They're law enforcement, retired military. They just bring a different level of research to the field of ufology or UAPology. So, Rich Hoffman, I'm so glad to welcome you back to Fate. I just really appreciate you so much. So, I'm not hearing him. I'm not hearing him. Oh, your microphone is muted, Rich. It's down on the bottom of your screen to the left.
Yeah, I don't.
Yay.
I guess when I was in the back room or the green room or whatever you want to call it. I was probably on mute or something like that. But anyway, yeah, I'm just thrilled to be with you again, Kat. I mean, I love the heck out of you. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
amazing, and I always look forward to our get-togethers. And so, thank you for having me back on with you.
Well, thank you for being here. Will you tilt your camera just a little bit to move your head up a little? Oh, well, there you are. I
Is
just
that
want
better?
everybody to see how cool you are. Yeah, there you go.
I don't know that
So,
I'm cool, but thank you so much.
hey,
But yeah.
a man who's comfortable enough in his masculinity to run around in lederhosen is always going to be one of my heroes. And put it
Yeah.
on social media. I just
Yeah,
love
no,
that.
that's always fun. I
It
when I was
is.
over in last name was Hoffman, and
Yeah.
my other family is Schneider and Dorsum, and then so that's all German. But I have a Nolan, which is actually Irish, so
It
it's a little.
is.
I'm able to wear the green on St. Patty's Day or something like that because I've got that little 1/4, Irish thing to it. But yeah. Anyway, so I enjoy the this time of year, especially with all the Oktoberfests that are
Yeah.
going on. So I usually get up in my garb and have a good time.
Well, that's one of my favorite things about, well, there's so many, but one of them, because what you do, your work has always been very serious work. Okay. Very
Yeah.
analytical, very mathematical, very engineering,
Yeah.
very intense. I'm married to a machinist. I get that. And you play so well.
Thank you.
And you have to have that balance.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
really do. I really believe very strongly in humor, having a good time, laughing, and really enjoying your life. I mean,
Yeah.
life is just so short, and then it's over. And
Yeah.
so make the most of it while you can. You know, Try to be as serious as you can in terms of getting things accomplished
When
or
you have
doing
to.
something, making life better for somebody or something of that nature. And then
Yeah.
at the same time, just being able to enjoy it because it's just a real blessing every
Yes.
day.
Yes. And, we're so fortunate because, we don't live where it's quite so frosty and stuff. So we can be outdoors more and do wild and crazy things a little bit longer. And speaking of wild and crazy, because we were communicating and I'm like, I sent you that link. And you're like, I don't have that link. And I'm like, I'm not going to be home for, some time now.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of like, oh my goodness, because I really thought that you had gone to the Alabama game. So, because I know you love them and that you
Yeah.
love that. And so I thought, well, he's probably in Nashville too. I'm not going out because there's a lot of angry fans. So it was not a good day for the state of Alabama football, Auburn or
No,
Alabama.
either one of them suffered
Yeah.
horribly, and it's the nature of the game. It's like you win some, you lose some, right? And
Yes.
so ultimately, I mean, look at Georgia; they lost. I mean,
Yeah.
number one team to us, and so it's going to happen, and you just make the best of it, and the players will recoup, and I'm sure that they'll have a great year.
Well, I'm sure they were getting an earful too, though. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
By all
it's a
means,
transitional period. They have a new coach
yeah.
and, a great coach, but a new coach, and everybody's still learning each other. But I was at an Alzheimer's awareness event for Greg Fingers Taylor. It was in his honor because he was Jimmy Buffett's harmonica player.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
he was pretty much everybody's harmonica player, brilliant musician and songwriter. But it was a very poignant moment, and I didn't
Oh,
know I was going until yesterday.
wow.
So, and I happened to find, well, my husband's like, look and find a ticket because my friends from Ohio were coming. And I'm like, I can see the winches. I have to go to Nashville. So, yeah. And then when the communication was like, but I don't have that. And I'm like, well, I can't do it on my phone. It wouldn't let me do it on my phone. So, yeah, I'll never travel without a laptop again in my entire lifetime, even for a one night thing. But we have a comment in chat from Johanna Maynard, and said to tell you that she hasn't had unmarked black helicopters since 2013 when she
Oh,
spoke
good.
with them. And oh my goodness, she met with Leo Sprinkle after that. Oh, the world misses Leo Sprinkle.
That's good that she's not having those helicopter issues. I mean, it was actually, she was struggling big time because apparently it was having a physical effect on her.
Oh my gosh.
And I was, greatly concerned about that, somebody's having like these kind of like effects from this. There's a lot of testing that goes on over at the Arsenal that I
Yes.
work at Redstone Arsenal. And so you'll see helicopters all the time that are doing either dropping flares, countermeasure kind of work or something like that, or they'll be testing sensors or they'll be doing something. So, for her to have that, effect like that, that was very disconcerting.
That would be. And she found out that she had been in a project at Redstone during childhood.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's intense. I didn't know Redstone did that kind of projects. But, and Yvonne Smith, who is, she is a Dolores Cannon type of hypnosis healing and such. But Yvonne verified that for her. So that's interesting to me. But, well, I didn't get to the Scientific Coalition and UAP Studies conference this year. This has been a very bizarre year. And it's been some time since we have spoken. And one of the things, because you do let me come and play, and I love doing that. I love all of the researchers who participate in this. And I love the fact that when the information, I was at Contact in the Desert the day that they had the hearings where, yes, we do have craft. Yes, we do have biologics. No, they're not human biologics. And I'm like, this is on the floors of Congress, and I have to fly for 8 hours today. I can't go anywhere. I have to stay here,
Sure.
because all of my heroes and field people were there. It was Contact in the Desert, the UAP conference for, serious things of that nature. A lot of, what would be considered woo too, but not much. And so it was so interesting because this was information on a smaller scale than what I had heard at the conference from the same people. And look at you, because y'all are science-based entirely.
Yeah, it was a great conference this year. It's unfortunate that it fell on the same weekend that the Contact in the Desert happened, and that was by sheer accident.
Right.
We were originally scheduled to be the week after that, and what happened was that the Army had their birthday celebration in our venue, and that trumps us. And so bottom line was that the people that I made the arrangements with realized that had happened, and they said, well, you have to move it. And we tried to look at and say, well, when do we move it? And the only time that they had available was the week before, which happened to coincide, of course, with the Contact in the Desert. So we'll definitely make sure we're not in the same time period again in the future. But there's a lot of conferences nowadays, it's very difficult for us to be able to try to, work our time. It was a great conference. I mean, literally a great conference.
Well, they are though. That's not unusual.
Yeah. No, I mean
this is a great conference. If you want to look at the scientific side of UAP studies, this is where you go.
Yep.
Because it's all science.
We touched just about everything in terms of science and stuff like that. With, you have the Beatriz Villarreal, who was talking about the transients that she's seeing from old photographs. She talked about that. You had Doug Bittner. Doug Bittner covered the analysis of the previous year by Dr. Richard Griffiths, who talked about the this object that actually we confirmed is actually Starlink satellites that were being misinterpreted. But he showed how you can actually do the geostationary kind of orbit, measurements and everything else to be able to see how an aircraft out of the sky could see a satellite out in the distance. And anyway, he put that whole package together. It was incredible to see how he had done it and what tools he used to do that. And then we touched base about, again, the Catalina events and what UAPX had seen there. And Dr. Knuth always does a great job with
Yeah.
his presentations and talked very much about, science and how does science and the assumptions that it makes and where does science go wrong. And anyway, it was really good. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry that, you couldn't have been there for it. And I would have loved to have seen you
Well,
again.
Well,
But
but I will not miss next year.
well, good,
I'm going to send my
good.
credentials in next week. So,
Sure.
send in for them. But I do appreciate the fact that I'm allowed to be there,
Oh,
in
yeah.
my capacity as media, because fate, people associate fate a lot of times with woo, right? But Phyllis and I both are very into looking for real answers, right?
Yep.
Fate was the first magazine covering. Our first cover was Kenneth Arnold's Experience, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Phyllis was gracious enough to send me a first edition for my birthday one year.
Oh,
So
how wonderful.
I have it. It's so cool.
Oh, that
But
is so cool.
I'll
Yeah.
bring it and show it to you. It's really neat. But
I'd love to see it. I have a stack of Fate magazines myself. I mean, I collected them early on myself. I've been at this for 60 years, so obviously I go back a ways. But
yeah,
Fate magazine was always a fun magazine to read, and I thought it treated very well the entire UAP subject and trying to cover cases and everything else for it. So I have an appreciation for Fate.
thank you. And she will love hearing that when she gets her power back and can go back and look at this.
Well, I hope she gets her power and that they're okay too.
But Johanna said that Clifford kept Fate magazine in his bathroom. And Johanna, you could not imagine, especially my younger than me guests, who were always like, my parents kept that. That was mandatory reading in our bathroom. Because it's the digest size, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so I was just like, and short stories for the most part.
Yeah.
So, you could take care of business and take care of business, but, but it really is. I think also, that the attention and the lack of, it's not like a forum of fantasy kind of things. I mean, there are some people write that kind of thing, but generally it's experiences that people have had.
Right.
And I relish that, because that's one of the reasons that I think that our worlds mesh so well and we work so well together, is because we both want the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even tell you, I've got my little guy back here somewhere. Oh, my little alien dude.
Oh yeah, I see you.
Yeah, he's not gone, but he's just kind of being a little bashful tonight. But I play. There you go. Oh, I have a Tesla coil. My husband made me a Tesla coil. So I'll bring it. I'll bring that with my plate and show it to you.
Oh
Usually
my
it's on my
gosh.
desk, but I was trying to organize things,
Yeah.
and I've been, like I said, it was insanity. So it's just kind of like I'm looking across my desk and I'm like, I don't see that. I still don't see that. I'll find it and show people. But but we do have the love for the science side. We're not going to get there just with experiential reporting.
Right.
We really need to be able to go and do it the way that you're going about it. How did you? I'll ask you this later, but let me write it down. But one of the things that when I first started going to some of these major conferences, and about 5-10 years ago, maybe a little longer, but everything UFO In fact, it was when Hillary was running for president. The nomenclature changed. And when I first heard her say, "Oh, everybody says UAP now," and I'm like, "Chick, I don't," you know. No, but I'm a paralegal by training. And so I'm sitting there thinking, well, we're changing the terminology, which means that, 2 generations from now, the history of UFO is going to be hidden because people will be searching for UAP. And I just think that might turn out to be a tragic thing if we don't have our answers by them. What do you think about that?
So I often think about that, in the context of, our, terminology we use. For example, if you look back, in history, you'll find out that a lot of people had different terms of reference for these objects.
Mm-hmm.
You had the mystery airships, you had the Foo Fighters, in the World War II. You had, for the longest time, they were flying saucers.
Mm-hmm.
And then they became, when Ed Ruppelt decided he was going to create the UFO, unidentified flying object. That was that was his military vernacular for what they were, and that kind of caught on. So we got away from flying discs or flying saucers and moved into that, right? But in the early days, it was all flying discs or flying saucers, right? Mm-hmm. That was the term that everybody used. So the terminology has gone through a long period of time. Usually it's because what happens is it's kind of like out of vogue, if you would. Mm-hmm. And the unidentified flying object was one of those ones where we're realizing that not all these objects are flying. Number one, they're in the water, they're in space, and everything else, right? So now it's a transmedium object, right? Okay, then you try to figure out, well, do I change it to unidentified, anomalous phenomena, UAP? Mm-hmm. And then there was unidentified aerial phenomena. I think that, the military is kind of like focused on unidentified anomalous phenomena. If you look at Arrow's title, for example,
yes,
it's the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Mm-hmm. And that's the government organization now. And again, they're struggling with that all domain, meaning the fact that it's now, that explains the transmedium. It's in, right, all 3 domains: water, air, and space. And it's, so we struggle with trying to be able to come up with an explanation for it, because we also became more educated on the fact that these objects are in all 3 of those different domains, right? So I'm okay with the fact that it goes through these morphs. And then in addition to the fact that I've always struggled with the fact that, there's other phenomena that are also being classified as, UFO or whatever like that, that it was hard to fit in what they were. And so I tend to want to go with anomalous phenomena, mm-hmm. although, SCU decided to go with the aerospace phenomena, meaning that it was at least air and space. And then in vernacular of the military, it can also include water as well. But we just struggle with coming up with a definitive term that helps us to be able to get through it. And I think that a lot of people are going to go toward the anomalous thing. The problem is, again, is what do we mean by anomalous? Well, that could inject anything from, other kinds of phenomena that we don't really want, and we don't want to be misinterpreted with ghosts or Bigfoot or, other anomalies, if you would. And so, or strange sounds that might be in the skies or something like that. So you struggle with it. And I think that, UAP is definitely where we're going to be going. I think it was more acceptable to the government, and mm-hmm. I talk with political people all the time, yes. and I understand why they made that distinction. And again, because UFO had become synonymous with a little bit of more of the woo, yes. that it was more uncomfortable for them to get past that, and so they said, let's use UAP, and that's kind of like a new term but it doesn't have that somewhat stigma behind it that UFOs might or something like that. But that's pretty much where I see it. I think that the term might even change the more we get educated on them in the future. Who knows?
Well, I don't think we're very far off from ascertaining what these are.
Right.
And I don't think one of my favorite authors is Ray Davis, he was writing a trilogy, but it's about, they really came to the White House lawn because everybody, that's the thing. And they've actually been in the White House airspace already.
Yeah.
So, why do we need the lawn?
Exactly. To me, it's like one of those things where it's like, I often gave a lot of thought to that. Is like, if you were an intelligent race, where would you choose to go? Who would you approach? Would you go to the Vatican? Would you go to? Is it better to go to France, or would it be better to go to all of them? Is the United States the one you want to go to? I don't know. I mean, ultimately, to me, it's a situation where it's a global phenomena.
It is.
I don't know if you knew about it, Kat, but 2 years ago, Ryan Graves and I were the ones that went over to Bologna, Italy, and actually had a chance to talk to the people over there for NATO. Mm-hmm. About the subject, and encouraging them to get involved and help us to study this and report them. And so I again, what I come back with the fact is that that it is a global phenomenon, and there's a lot of global interest in it, and we just need to get together and be able to chat more. And fortunately, SCU is comprised of people in other countries, and we do a lot of chatting.
I love that. When I was there last, the young woman in France, whose name is escaping me. I had her written down somewhere. But one of the lecturers was just brilliant, and she was so young, and in her flat in Paris, and I was just like, wow, she is a great English speaker. I've got to learn another language because I took Latin and nobody will talk Latin to me anymore. But, they're all dead. Sure. So, like the language, but it's just kind of it fascinates me, the people that you bring in.
Yeah. To me, it's like, Kat, I go back to when I've been at this now for like 60 years. So this year was my 60th anniversary. I go back to those early days when I was growing up in Dayton, Ohio, which is where Project Blue Book was, right? And all those days where you had Hynek that was in town. Mm-hmm. He would be giving a presentation at the Dayton Engineers Club. I actually went over and heard him there, and we got to hear a lot of different kinds of like very interesting and people and perspectives in the city. But what I was trying to say was that we very quickly became more moved by science, mm-hmm. and that the fact that science really needed to study this, and really get engaged, because there's a legitimate phenomena, out there that people are seeing that our science would benefit from by getting involved, right? And so yes. Hynek was pushing for, getting scientists to do this, and he was struggling at the time with being able to make some headway on that, because there was pushback, and basically the universities were not accepting it. Flying saucers is just a weird thing, and UFOs are just a weird thing, and don't even bother with it, that type of thing. Well, here we are now in 2017. They're announcing the fact that the Pentagon had a study. They released 3 videos, and then what happens is suddenly now it's like congressional level. People are having conversations. There's conversations where I work in the military base all the time about this subject. People are having water cooler discussions about it that they didn't have back in my time, early time. And so I'm watching this explosion of just all these incredible conversations that we're
Yes.
having now, where we can actually do that without fear of being, made a fool of, or considered to be crazy or whatever, because we've
Yes.
got that now. It's almost like you have your legs back. You were when
Yes.
when you
Yes.
you you lost your legs when it was cut out from underneath you by the Condon report, but now we got our legs back and we're having these conversations, and it's just fabulous. And
Those
I'm
new
so,
hips work, right?
huh?
Those new hips are working.
Yeah, yeah. By
Yeah.
all means, yeah. I mean, it's just it's a great time for me, and especially to somebody like me who has lived through all those cultural changes we went through over the 60-year
Yes.
time period. I'm thrilled. I'm glad, and I think that we talk about disclosure. They probably heard about
Yeah.
it in the desert. What does that mean? Uh, does what's going to be satisfying? For me, the fact that the government came out and said UFOs exist, that was a
Yes.
disclosure.
Well, that is, and people are, I sit there and I mean, because I read, I watch, you know, I watch YouTube. I I'm always fascinated by that. I mean, and that's one of the things that I love about your group. Okay. Every place else that I go, well, we need disclosure, 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 disclosure. And in fact, I'm writing an article right now about this. I was at the Scottish Paranormal and UFO Conference, and I was taken aback by the fact that the UK does not mention disclosure. Okay.
Hmm.
And nobody else does either. But it's like somebody went and stole the Missouri motto, the show me state. And we don't, I think that's their motto. Is that Missouri? It is.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, yeah, because they had Rendlesham. Their government did not run from that. They they worked it
Yep.
as a site, as an actual investigation. And other things that have happened there they didn't run from. But our government has always been, oh no, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I mean, you're crazy if you're seeing, you know, craft and creatures, you definitely just need help. you know. And so many people have been belittled in their experience and such that that's why people don't know this is disclosure.
Hmm.
They're wanting the alien autopsy bodies. Everybody wants into Area 51, which by the way, I went there last year. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And got to go to Groom Lake, and which all these places are phenomenal. And so to me, it's just kind of a echo chamber that people have locked themselves in. You have the government talking about this. We have disclosure. Let's move on to examine what disclosure of,
Yeah.
you know. And
Right.
if you stop screaming for it and you look at what we're getting, are you not just blown away by this?
Yeah.
They've been I wouldn't really want to say my government was lying through their teeth since 1947, but they've been lying through their teeth since 1947. And yeah, even before, because the Trinity crash, when Jacques and Paolo wrote that book, Jacques came on to talk with me about it. I didn't know. And there had been a Padilla man reaching out to me from California. The only thing I knew was that he had pictures with Stanton and Kathleen, but he didn't say anything about himself, about why he wanted to come on. And I'm like, I don't know you. if you'll just educate me, I'd love to talk to you.
Sure.
And, I don't generally bring people on without doing a background talk to learn. And he was very offended. And I hate that because I would like to have that conversation, you know.
Yeah, sure.
So, but I mean, we really have known they had people, they had craft and individuals from that crash
So I
pre
think that
Roswell.
for the most part, if you take a look at it, and this is where I come from anyway, from the science perspective, if you
Right.
would, even when if you look at the whole question of, is there water on Mars, or was there life on Mars,
Right.
and you watch as the hesitancy on the part of NASA to be able to say, well, yeah, there's organic molecules there. We're finding this or we're finding that, but they don't come out and say that there was life on Mars at all,
Right.
or something that. And their science tends to be very, very cautious because they know that if they put something forward, it's going to be attacked by all these other sciences or people wanting to inject. So and I personally, I think that where we need to keep our focus on what these objects are, how they maneuver, and really to get evidence of the fact that they do exist in the context of that. Now we have a better understanding about them, and we can share that, and then we can share that with our political leaders and educate them about the subject better. Then it's a situation where it's a win-win, and you might say, well, yeah, I feel comfortable in saying that we do have life from elsewhere. But if you look at the whole context of this military thing, if you would, which we've been military and intelligence world, they're very, very cautious about how that they phrase things and say things, and they'll want to say that they don't come out and say that they're alien craft.
Right.
They do say that they're, but they always have that leaving the door open because they know that how do you describe an object that's going Mach 55 in our skies, for example, and doesn't heat up in the atmosphere and doesn't do anything normal like that we know of, and yet not say that it's definitely something not from Earth, right?
Something that we don't have the capability to make at this point.
Bingo. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's not ours. It's not theirs. And, that harkens back even to the day you mentioned Kenneth Arnold, after his sightings and stuff like that, when they got Project Sign going, and it's called Project Sign or Saucer or whatever. The whole gist of that was to say, well, we believe the estimate of the situation said, we believe that they're interplanetary spacecraft because we've looked and they're not ours, and they're not from any other country on the Earth. We believe, and so they are interplanetary spacecraft. Of course, what happened then was that the General Hoyt Vandenberg decided that he was going to kill it and kibosh it, and we ended up trashing the estimate of the situation, and there you go. Yes. But that was a pretty predominant declaration of the fact that it's not from here, and I think we know that. Yes. Every one of us knows that that's the case. Why is it that you just can't have the government saying a little bit more to the fact that, we believe that they're not from here, and we just don't know where here is.
Well, and that's an okay thing to say, but people are so afraid to just say that.
I know.
And I don't know why. Do you think it's because the government has been denying for so long, right? And do you think that if they are proven to have been sandbagging or gaslighting on this, because how many people have been ridiculed and mocked and afraid to come forward because of the ridiculously ugly way that this has been presented and non-factual. It's not possible. You're seeing little green men.
Yeah.
You need to see a psychiatrist.
I think that this is, well, first off, we have the national security agreements that all the employees have to sign and everything else,
Right.
right? So ultimately, that whole notion of security is a big time concern, and it keeps people quiet. Secondly, I think we assume incorrectly that the government is educated on this topic, which it's
No.
not.
I mean, they're
And
humans
then
too.
and then thirdly, we also make these gross assumptions that when we say the word the government, like we're talking to an individual, and
Right.
yet it's made up of a huge number of people with all kinds of different opinions about this topic,
Yeah.
including the people who think it's just woo, or the people who have religious issues with it, or something like that. They're all demons or whatever like that. And so there's not, and we believe that there's like a government one voice, which there's not. We know that the voice of Congress depends upon who's the party that you're talking with. We know that the politicians are all different. So we really don't have a consistency going on in the U.S. government in terms of a good understanding of what's going on with the phenomena. They're not educated on it. Even the politicians we hear talking about it many times are just making bizarre statements and
As
stuff
they
like that,
go.
which are inaccurate, and they reflect poorly on them because that shows that they are just not read into it. And so I think that it. I try not to be harsh against the government because I'm a part of them, and I clearly see that there's not going to be one voice from where I work. I mean, people in the cubes that are next to me or across the next row have no idea what I'm working on. So, there you go. I mean, it's like we're not all connected. There's not a single voice. But I think that a lot of the U.S. citizens believe that that's going to be the case or ought to be the case. And I agree. It'd be nice if we had that, but we don't.
Well, you don't really think they spend $30,000 on a toilet seat, do you? Right? So, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
18,000 for a hammer.
sure.
I'm
And if this is like so classified, it's not like I am going to be able to walk over easily and have a conversation with somebody and say like, "Hey, tell me about that." Oh, well, I can't, or they
yeah,
won't even allude to it. So, I mean, there you go. You're going to run into
yeah.
problems, and you're just not even the people in the government can't get answers.
That's the truth. I'm going to tell you that we are about to have a minor eruption here. Um, because my husband has come home and the dogs don't know it yet, and he's about to come in the door. So I apologize. Usually my microphone takes care of that, but I'm at a different angle tonight. So
No
you're going to
problem.
you'll hear one of them anyway. But, I just find it so fascinating. And I have always loved this topic because when I was in seventh grade, I saw my first UFO. And my dad and his Green Beret buddies tried to tell me that it was a helicopter. And I'm like, I've watched y'all jump out of them my whole life. That's not moving. There's no noise, and I don't see any blades. And all of them were just like, well, I think our steaks are ready. Let's go ahead and pull this off. So I'm going to mute for just a second. Talk for a minute.
Okay. Well, no problem because I understand completely. Anyway, it's neat that you have some pets in your life. Anyway, I miss my pet. But
Okay.
yeah, to me, it's a situation where it's like, I mean, a lot of people like you have had those experiences where they've seen things. And, I'll just ask you, Kat, did you did you report it?
Well, I was in seventh grade.
Oh, okay. So,
I
yeah,
reported it to my
yeah,
Green Beret buddies that were
yeah.
sitting around our grill outside our house,
Yeah.
right?
Well, so
But I
many
also had
people.
lights in my room that night.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and they were green and white.
Uh-huh.
And there were some red, but but it was primarily green and white. And I was just like, I mean, I didn't know anything about that. I was just like, what is that? It's a helicopter. No, it's not. I know what they
Sure.
sound and look like. They were
Yeah.
paratroopers, airborne division. So, yeah, I mean, I was not in a position to report stuff. I have reported other things I've seen. In
Sure.
fact, our friend Mark D'Antonio, who is the MUFON
Yep.
video and photography reviewer,
Hmm.
when we were at an event out in Phoenix one year, a guy came up with a video on his phone that he showed him. And I was kind of looking over the shoulder, and Mark's like, no, 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 that's not that. So, as you know, there's an air refueling wing here in Birmingham.
Hmm.
And I got excited because I hadn't seen Starlink at this point. And so I came running off the deck because, let the dogs out. I like to hang out on the deck too at night. And there were two things that were flying like, I'm trying to do this right. Like, here's one, here's the other. And they're just moving in tandem, right? But they were big and they were illuminated from within. And so I know that's not air refueling. I've seen that. In fact, I
Right.
helped design their unit coin. But the I'm excited. I came running in the house and I'm telling David, I just saw Starlink, right? Well, then when I saw Starlink, I was like, oh, I did not see Starlink. So dang it. But then that made that a whole different connotation because it was not anything that anybody could discuss. And so when I was with in Mark's company at another event, I said, that guy that had those like they're cylindrical and they were flying in tandem. And Mark said, oh, I don't know. I said, yes, you do. Because we were standing right there. And he was like, well, I said, I saw that, but it was illuminated brighter. I was seeing it naked eye. And it was because the guy that did it had done it with the green night vision. So, but what I saw was white illumination. They were white. So I was just kind of like, and that's here in Birmingham on my deck, and I'm just like, oh, look, it's probably not Starlink now that I have seen what one really looks like. So I was very disappointed that it wasn't Starlink, but then I started thinking about the other connotations, right? So if somebody that's just a dog, go out with the dogs, look around, those are usually the people that have the reports, aren't they?
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
dog walkers.
I always got a kick out of it because I'd look at the cases that I would get, and say, oh, well, I went outside with my dog. It was late at night, or I went out for a cigarette, was walking my dog, and they all start out that way.
They do, because those are who are outside at night.
Yeah, exactly. I went outside to walk my dog, and there you go. And so, in fact, I've had the air refueling missions reported as UFOs as well.
Well, sure, yeah, because it's funky.
Yeah,
but the bay doors are open.
Yeah.
Well, not the bay doors, but the hose doors. Those are lit.
Exactly.
So you see the connection.
Yeah, people see that and they're just like, "Oh, I'm freaking out," and it's just really, really weird. And so you have all kinds of those like lighting drones now are being, flying at night. You'll see those a lot at for example, if you have a fireworks display, typically now you'll see a drone or a couple drones that are parked over the fireworks display that are watching it. And so we get those reported all the time. I don't know if you know it or not, but we're now on my 5th season of The Proof Is Out There, which is on History Channel.
Yes. Well, and you were also on the Unexplained Files.
Yeah. Unexplained.
But Mark, I think Mark has done that.
Yep, he has.
The Truth Is Out There.
Yeah, we typically are doing the same kind of thing where we're looking at, videos or photos that are taken and then giving our analysis of them. And so like I'm looking right now at a whole, I think I just finished looking at about 12 different cases. And then later this month, I'll be going to do the filming for that. But they're interesting cases. They're interesting videos. But many times we could explain them.
Well, and that's, I mean, we want to know if there's a valid explanation.
Sure.
You know, not just a knee jerk. No, that's
Yeah.
not it. And you don't knee jerk. I
No.
mean, because you have an innate curiosity. Do you mind if I ask you some of these questions that we're getting in
Sure.
chat and share some of the comments? But let's see. Well, first of all, hey Lori Dorsey, I'm glad that you got in there. And Victoria Monday is here too. And so Johanna is not the only person there. One of the things that, okay, so Johanna had said from a Native American culture and spiritual perspective, they've always been there, which is true. And then she also pointed out that anomalous would be like telepathic communication between the UFOs, which is also because we need to know how they're doing that. And then when we were talking about UAP versus UFOs, she said labels. And brought up Tim Burchett, who talks about UAPs. And then when we were talking about, my experiences as a young person, Victoria said, should we report our UFO preferences even if they happened decades ago? Would move on, take a childhood experience seriously? Would they? Would you?
I recommend that people, if they've got some, the recollection of having a good, solid experience, that they do report it. And yes, to report it to MUFON and say that, that it happened to me, if with as much details as you possibly can come up with. And in other words, it happened to me in this city or this location. If you can cite roughly the time period that it was,
Okay.
if you can get specific details, it helps us to understand the history of the phenomena. So history is important. And I do recommend that. Even when we were, back when I was the director for MUFON in Alabama and Mississippi, and also went on to become the deputy director of investigations, as well as the director for research, basically using technology and stuff like that. I always encourage people to report because it gives us a historical record. But again, you want to be able to do it from the standpoint, if you can make it as clearly accurate and fact-filled as possible. If you can't do that, then it kind of makes it difficult for us to really do any work with it. As scientists, I'm just going to stress this. Scientists don't like to go with anecdotal kinds of like testimony, because what do we know about the human condition? We're very fallible. We don't have good memories. We can't retain things. You might see something different than I. And so bottom line is, there's a lot of that comes into play where we don't get the details and the data that we'd like to get, which is what science doesn't work around at all. The fact that you had it is good because it just says it's a human observation, and that's a data point.
Yes.
But again, we're from a scientific standpoint, we're looking to be able to actually get, like, what do these things look like in infrared? What do they look like in ultraviolet? What do they look like in all these other different parts of the spectrum? Is when we say that we don't hear them, is it because that they were above our hearing ranges, or was it below our hearing ranges? Can we use tools to be able to actually now listen much more broadly than human ear does, and see if we can actually hear that they are making sounds? We just are not, humans are not picking them up. So if you get what I'm trying to say here, the scientists want to go after and use the data to be able to get it, and they want to use instruments to help them with that. Okay.
So keep it to the data points.
As much as you can, keep it to the data points, and the more data that you can provide. Again, going back to the fact that you had a date, time, you had it was the location was there, the duration of what it was there. If you can cite all those details, it would be very, very helpful to us.
Good to know. Okay. Yeah. So she said that she was 2, but vividly remembers it.
Oh, two. Wow. Wow.
Oh, she said
I
maybe
can't
three.
remember.
Maybe
I can't
three.
remember much of anything that young.
Well, and Johanna was talking about, being, first seeing them around Redstone, and you know, some something that I was curious about is that this is going to sound crazy, okay? But do they ever hide in clouds? Have you heard reports of this happening, like low clouds?
Well, I mean, we've seen much like that they move out of water or into water. They're moving through clouds, much like aircraft will fly through clouds or go into clouds. But do they hide in clouds? Meaning, do they try to like
Well,
not be visible? And
yes,
it's not
above
it's not
terra firma.
reported. It's not very much reported at all. It'd be very rare that we see that. Um, Sometimes you'll have objects when they depart, they kind of like maybe leave. There's a cloud, maybe somehow, around where they were. We're looking at right now the physical effects in the atmosphere, uh, where we're noting, for example, like, in the Nimitz case, you had
Hmm.
Commander Slate saying that he observed when the object came up and before it shot off to the cap point, the fact that it had like a mirage-like effect
Hmm.
that was going on around the Tic Tac. In that instance, you have a physical effect in the atmosphere that's creating like this, like, image, or like a might be some sort of distortion going on. And what can that tell us about maybe the propulsion about the craft? And so
Hmm.
we look at that, or we're looking at those like atmospheric effects, but we don't often see or hear about them hanging in clouds, and then shooting off or doing what they're doing.
Well,
That's Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
It made for a great movie if you saw the movie, the cowboy kind of like movie. What was that? Nope. Did you see the
That's my
movie called,
saying.
yeah, Nope? Uh,
Nope.
yeah,
Yeah.
Nope. They tried to use clouds as being the place where they hang out at, or something like that.
Well, I had that experience here
Did you?
at my during daytime. And, at that time I had a dog that was a hammock layer. So we would lay in the hammock together, just when she got through running around the yard or whatever. And so I was on the phone with my daughter. I don't think I've ever told you this,
No, I've not heard
but,
this before.
but I was on the phone with my daughter and I saw a very weird, it was like a green cloud, but it was tinted toward the yellow side of green. And it was not treetop high. It was like the top of my gazebo high. And I was on the phone with Allie and I was like, don't hang up, because if I do not want a lost time incident ever. I'd never hear of anybody that had fun doing that, right? So I was just kind of like, don't hang up, just stay here. And I kept talking to her the whole way through it. And I was just like, this is what's happening. And it was really weird because it didn't go completely stationary, but it slowed. It was already moving pretty slow. And a metallic, you hear people talk about the upside down pipe ends.
Hmm.
Well, that's what it looked like, was the rim where they would come together. And so I'm just like, this is a caricature of a UAP experience, right?
Sure.
And so, I was just tripping out, and she she stayed home with me. And I didn't go away, but it just kind of, you know, and I was able to see enough to know that there weren't windows. It was smooth. So I thought, well, how would they know I was here? So I just figured, you know, the cloud or the cloud caught back up with it or whatever, and it just kept moving. I watched it move away,
Hmm.
and it just meandered. I mean, it stayed in a straight line, but
Right.
it wasn't hurrying. It was almost like surveying or something. And I just thought that was the most, and I don't really talk about that very much
Yeah.
because it sounds like I was doing drugs on my deck or something, but I don't. So,
Well,
it was
you know, and
different.
this goes back to what I was trying to say here, Kat. And I was like saying, like, well, do these things get reported? And if you're sitting back and questioning, well, am I crazy or am I what?
Yeah.
Who's going to go call up the government and say, I by the way, I saw this thing and did this thing, and it's very awkward. Not anybody's going to do that. I mean, they don't
Right.
feel comfortable with doing that, and so
Yeah.
the vast majority of the reports are not being reported. So
Well,
going back to the
I tried to report it to MUFON,
yeah.
and the system would not take the report.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
so I called, and I had another incident of not quite that nature, but it was dark outside. And so I called Steve Hudgens because I've interviewed him for years. We've been, friends. I respect the daylights out of the guy. And I said, this happened. He said, well, you need to report it online. I said, I tried to. I've tried twice and it wouldn't take the information. And he was like, oh, I said, yeah, it doesn't always work. you know.
Yeah, and
So
so that's a big time problem. And right
yeah.
now, I think I haven't heard whether it's recovered or not, but that they were hacked. And basically, I think the reporting thing was down. I don't know if it's back up or not, but
Oh
anyway,
wow.
yeah. So I mean, they were hacked, and apparently there was a lot of data that might have been lost or something. I really don't know, but anyway, I have heard that, and I talked with Stacy Wright out in
Hmm.
Arizona. She's the state director for
Yeah.
that. In fact, I'm going to be going in November to give a presentation to her chapter in Arizona.
Oh fun.
But anyway, we talked about it, and they said that yeah, apparently it's down, and that's sad because you need to be able to have some organization that's going to take these reports. The government is not going to be taking reports from the public anytime soon.
No,
It's
they're not because they can't
right.
right now.
Exactly. So, the big question is always like, well, who do you report it to? Who do you report sightings and stuff like that? Where do I go as a John Q citizen when I want to be able
Hmm.
to report it? And a lot of people don't know. I mean, and I
Right.
completely understand that. There's New Fork, which is will take
Hmm.
your observations and things like that.
Is
If
that still
MUFON,
operating?
yeah, it's still down, still operating. Um, Anyway, yeah. So there's serious challenges in terms of like knowing where do I go to report, and again, I can't speak for whether the MUFON system is back up online or not, but I know NewFork is a good place for you to be able to report it to. At
Okay.
least it has it there for documenting purposes. And then we at SU will take reports, but we're taking more reports where there's like data.
Hmm.
So if you've got like some sort of data that you want us to look at, like some cases like the Aguadilla thing that we did, or
Yes.
and we spent a lot of time on the military cases because they have excellent data. But that's where we engage our scientists to be able to study it and to see what we can come up with.
Well, it's really hard. I feel like it's really hard for a civilian going about their daily life to be able to create data from an experience.
Yes.
It's something that as a just regular citizen who's had these experiences, it's really they were so out of normal. And like I said, I was so excited. It never dawned on me
Yeah.
that that wasn't Starlink, right?
Yeah.
I just,
Right.
but I didn't know the elevation it flew at.
Yes.
So when I was out in Phoenix, we were doing a Skywatch tour, and Ben Hansen and Mark both were doing it. So it was really interesting because when I saw them go by, I said, "Nope, that's not it." you know, but how cool is this? I love this. And by the way, thank you, so much to um, Elon Musk for getting those Starlinks into the areas, because that's the only communication these people have. He did it through the Tampa and the Panhandle, and well, not the Panhandle, but the the curve, because this was this was my favorite little town, second time of being wiped out in a very short period. So I'm hoping that I I don't see it coming back a third time, which is tragic. There's a lot of little wonderful places down there. Um, so just pray for that region if that's what you do. Pray, chant, burn smoke, whatever. So I think that as how would you suggest, like, I was on the phone with somebody, I could not film that. And I was not breaking that phone conversation because of my background knowledge of what can happen. And I did not want to experience that. So, how would you suggest just an average person go about providing the data that can be analyzed?
So let me give you some tips, okay? Because ultimately, the most all of us have nowadays a thing called a cell phone, right? And
Yeah, but it's
we're
never
smart,
out of our hand.
right? Never out of our hands. I pointed out to people in the past that when I did case investigations back in the early days, all I had was a pencil and a paper, and people and colored crayons where people could
Yes.
do things, right?
Yes.
I mean, I did not have a computer. I did not have any of that stuff, right?
Right.
So let me talk to you about this. For example, on my phone, for example, Kat, you call me up and you say that I'm seeing this object. I'm standing out in my backyard and I'm looking at these objects that are going by. You give me a call. I'll be able to go on it and say, okay, give me your address. I put it into Google Earth, and now I'm standing above your house and I'm looking and seeing where you're positioned out in the yard, right?
Hmm.
You say, I'm standing by my oak tree and it's over on the left, and I can pretty much see that, right?
Right.
Okay, now the next thing you say, I see these three lights up there. Let's FaceTime. And so now you're FaceTiming and you're actually holding up the phone, and I'm also seeing the objects you're seeing at the same
Cool.
time.
Okay.
And guess what? I also have flight radar data that I can go on to, and I can look and see if there are any aircraft in the area.
Hmm.
So now I'm looking at the flight data and I'm saying, well, wait a minute, I do see an aircraft. Do you see an aircraft over to your south position or something like that? Yeah, I see that, but that's not the objects that we're seeing, right? Okay, and then I'm also can go and look at the satellites right above you.
Hmm.
I can also look at the stars that are directly above you and see the same sky that you are in.
Right.
And I can also tell you if there's an app that you could that would be great for you to get. It's called Theodolite, and
Yes.
it may be a couple bucks for you to pay for it,
I
but
didn't know that was going to be something I could use with that. I got it for ghost hunting.
yeah. So Theodolite is great in the sense that you can take a photo and it has a grid, and you can also send all the data, including the bearing that your phone is at. You can send me the your GPS location and all that stuff like that. I can also then do I can see and triangulate, and I can get kind of like a distance or an altitude. Maybe I can do something with all from that Theodolite
I
camera.
didn't know that.
Yeah, instead of using your own camera, the Theodolite allows you to do that. So what I'm trying to say, there are these tools that we have now on the phone
Yes.
where
Okay.
you can include other people that helps you big time. And think about it, FaceTime or something of that nature, where you can get your neighbor or something like that, and they're outside seeing it too.
Mhm.
And guess what happens if you now get 2 different locations that are doing it? You can do 2 or 3. You can start to get an altitude.
Oh, how cool.
Precise
Okay.
altitude. So when you ask what a John Q. Citizen can do,
Yes.
those are the kinds of things that are helpful for us to be able to do our research and would help advance us out big time. And it also supports you from the standpoint that you're not the only one seeing it now. The
Yes.
neighbor is also hooked in and everything else. So these are the kinds of things that you want to be able to consider doing with that
Well, I
wonderful
will.
thing that you've got now called this smartphone, right?
Well, I have had theodolite and removed it.
Ah, okay.
I mean, I bought it.
I swear
And
by it.
well, I will reload it because, you know, I wasn't getting the application I was buying it for, it wasn't useful for. But this is a whole different world.
Yep, it is. And again, all that data that you see on the screen on theodolite, like again, the GPS bearing that you're looking at, the bearing, the GPS location, but the bearing that you're looking and you're pointing your camera, it gives me the camera settings that you're at and everything else. It gives me all that wonderful data as a scientist that I would love to be able to have, right?
Okay.
And you're able to email all that data to me from the phone.
Well, you're getting it the next time I see something. Now that I have this knowledge, I'll probably never see another one, right? But I do think that sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, areas or I think some people have, I don't know what the attraction is. I don't know what would create a situation where somebody has so many experiences and yet no obvious time loss or anything.
Sure.
You know, I put that question to somebody one time and they said, well, they're just in tune with you. And I'm like, how could they be in tune with me? You know, they don't, I mean, this is the only alien I've ever seen that I know of. And yeah, I have to tell you, my machinist, you know, completely logical husband brought Al home to me from a market that he had been in. So it was a display, and David talked the people into giving it to him to bring home to me.
That's fun. Oh
So, but you know, I've just never felt like I had enough information to turn in. Victoria asks, is Google Earth in real time and can we go into the specs? And can we all have your phone number? She said JK on the phone number though. But just so you know, I don't even have his phone number, Victoria. But you know, it's just one of those things that's going to be so handy. And I hope anybody listening to this now or in the future, you do this, because I'm just an average little old lady in Alabama who has these things show up. And, you know, I get embarrassed a little bit about the Starlink thing, but it's just a case in point because those suckers were big.
Yeah.
They were big from where I was standing looking up at them.
Sure.
And if they weren't jets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they were cylindrical and they were illuminated from inside. It looked translucent almost. And they weren't lanterns, they were too big. So
another thing that I was going to tell you was that if you have your camera and you have theodolite, you take a picture of what it's doing. It has like these, you can put these like little range finder kind of like things on them, you know, little circles and stuff like that, which allows you to then see like basically like, well, how high up was it? And if I took that photograph, you'd be able to draw the size of what the object was maybe that you saw in the sky, right? And so many times what we get when we get a UFO report is people are not familiar with, like, how do you gauge distance of something?
I am terrible at that. Yeah.
You know, people are terrible at that. You know, if you've ever been on a highway, you know, the car in front of you, when it's up close, is really, really big. It's like, wow, that's pretty good size. But when you see it a mile down the road, it's a little pinpoint, you know.
Yes.
And you're saying, well, is that, is that a mile away from me, that little pinpoint? Or, and then it's even more complicated at night, where,
Oh,
well,
yes.
what am I, and if there's no reference point for distance, you're struggling big time with how do I gauge that? Is it 3,000 feet? Is it 10,000 feet
See,
or
I could never
whatever,
do that.
and
I use
so,
the trees.
well, and use clouds, by the way.
Yes. Well,
If you understand that the cumulus clouds are like at, roughly at about maybe 3,000 feet altitude or something like that, and they can be a little bit lower than that. But okay, well, was it above the clouds or below the clouds, and it flew into a cloud? Well, we can find out something even from that, because we now have underground history that we're able to go and look at and find the actual level of the clouds, and we can make a determination on the altitude.
fascinating.
Yeah.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
That's
So
the coolest thing ever.
use clouds as a guide for maybe the altitude,
Yeah.
and then also get familiar with, if you can, for example, like the moon. If you see a full moon, that's a half a degree in terms of the degrees in the sky that it occupies. Well, is it the size of the moon? Full moon? Is it a half of the moon? Maybe use that as a reference point or something of that nature, and that helps us out. If you see a star or a planet, what was bigger than Jupiter or bigger than whatever.
Well, that would be hard, because Jupiter looks like a really, really big bright star, right?
Yeah, it does.
So,
it does.
And I mean, I am a star watcher. I love it, but yeah, and heaven help you if there's a meteor shower. I'm not coming in that night. But it's just that these things. And Victoria, like, is Google Earth in real time?
No, Google Earth is not. It's not a real-time thing, and that's sad for us. But ultimately, what it does is, again, going back to like our reference, the conversation we just had about you having the sighting.
Mm-hmm.
If you give me your address, at least I can see maybe potentially whenever they took the photo of your property, that there might be a tree out there, or you could give me some gate. Like, I'm looking at it and saying, okay, I see a fence line that's out there. Do you see? Yeah, that's my fence. Okay. You could say that. And so ultimately I'm able to use Google Earth to be able to gauge a lot of different things. In fact, I use it for the measurement. It has a measuring tool in Google Earth. I don't know if you know that or not. I can take your position and I can go to the next position, and I can get the little measure when I right click and say measure. Mm-hmm. And I'm able to now gauge. You said, well, I saw it was over near that tower over there. Well, okay, I can look at where you're standing, and I can look at where the tower is. I can measure the distance that's away, right?
Right.
So, I mean, these are all very important little things for us to use to be able to do some sort of a study, right?
Okay, so there is all kinds of stuff. I'm very excited by this, because I'm never looking for them. I'm just an outside person. And so hopefully when it happens again, I'll have my phone and I'll have my theodolite and know how to use it. And I'm sending you that file. So
yeah.
And we'll just
that's right.
talk about it, and you can educate me from it.
By all means, I mean,
that'd be fun.
And I think that, this is the type of thing that I was sharing with some of the people in the government, that, we can do a better job with the tools we have on our phones, since everybody has one of those things. We'd be able to do a lot better in terms of our data collection. So, for example, let's say that there's an object in your area, Kat, in Birmingham. Okay. If we knew all the people in that area that had this one app on it, we could alert them and let them know that there's an object that's over in your area, and you can now go outside it and filming it or take pictures of it. So now we have multiple people around the city who have the alert that also are outside seeing it, and we can do all kinds of triangulation. We can see it from different angles. we can see it from all different kind of perspectives that we didn't normally see.
That's astounding.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to be active with that.
Yeah.
So
Good.
maybe I can get some of my neighbors to be interested in that too, because I just think it's so important.
Yeah.
You know, we've got all this stuff happening. We have the government actually saying, well, yes, we do, you know, and it's just such a great time
Yeah.
to be interested in this. I just think it's my favorite to I do a lot of anomalous research. I do paranormal investigation. I hate to call it ghost hunting because I would not want to be hunted. So, but when people are like paranormal investigator, it's like ghost hunter. So they're like, oh, okay. It's the term that people recognize. But
Oh, sure.
you know,
Yeah.
but it's but I don't go looking for them as a rule. Usually people will call me and say, we're having this happen. And, you know, and I wonder sometimes if it's really not, you know, because I always say you need to get an evaluation of you. You know, get a vision check, is there anything going on with you? But I've always thought it would be interesting if this was a UAP related phenomenon in a lot of ways, especially when it's a outdoor um, group experience over an area. And wouldn't you just love? I know it's the most horrible thing that's happened in this country in so long, but wouldn't you just love to be up on top of one of those mountains with no light pollution?
Oh, yeah. That would be great.
I
Absolutely
mean,
great. Yeah.
it's one of the few things, and it's a kind of silly thing to maybe consider, just something to break up the horror and the panic that they're experiencing, that they could just stop and look up at the sky. Because even without a UFO up there, it's so soothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, before we go, I'm going to offer some places that people can reach out and help. But, you know, it's just one of those things that it can bring you such comfort and peace just to watch it. And even if you do see something, it's like, oh, look, I'm not alone up here on the in this crisis management situation that I have no idea how to manage because nobody's helping me. You know, it's just, although kudos to Samaritans first and to the Cajun Navy, because the Cajun Navy came out of their boats and went to North Carolina, and they are packing ATVs, they are packing mules, they are packing everything. And I want to, on behalf of, you know, people that wish that they had a way to go and do that too, thank y'all for doing that. Because, oh my God, we have such wonderful people. People are nice when they,
They
you
are.
know, people, we're all human.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where we live.
That's
And we
right.
all have different experiences. And, um, you know, I think that what you do, you've done it a long time. How long have you been how long have you actively been a member of MUFON?
Well, since its inception, it was the Midwest UFO Network, and it was 1969 that I got involved. So it was right then when they were still just starting up practically. Um, so I was with them. I'm a lifetime member right now. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm ultimately, but you know, it's a situation where my whole life has been this. You know, I mean, for the most part, I just turned 73, and I've been at it for 60 years. So,
Yeah.
you know, I've been I've enjoyed every aspect, every minute of it. Actually, to be honest with you.
Well, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, I started Paranormal Experienced, and you've been on there because I cover everything. I don't
Hmm.
care. I mean, this is paranormal. It's not
Yeah.
normal to
Right.
have an alien in your bedroom. you know, or tapping on your door,
Right.
or scaring your dogs out in the yard. It's not something that people ever really want to experience, because when you talk about non-human biologics, okay, that can be anything.
Hmm.
And to me, when 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 Mace asked that question and he gave her the answer, don't ask a question you don't want to know the answer to.
Hmm.
And she did that. And I don't think that they ever expected that a member of the United States military was going to say non-human. We do have bodies. We do have was it bodies or remains? But I think it was biologicals. What did you think when he said that?
Well, to me, it's a situation where I kind of like, so here's where I'm at with the whole, phenomena around beings. If you take a look
Right.
at that, there are a lot of cases of beings that have been reported. There's beings of, if you look at Lonnie Zamora case, the one that I
Oh
got in,
yes.
he saw two diminutive type of beings that were next to the craft or outside the craft,
Hmm.
who got it back in the craft, and it takes off, right?
Right.
You could go through countless other cases throughout history and hear about beings. Now, not all UAP are big enough to support that. For example, we have grapefruit-sized craft. Those don't have necessarily beings in them. They could be like drones.
Yes.
They could be out doing whatever their
Measurements.
yeah,
Checking
exactly.
our environment. Yeah.
Right. Autonomous, and they're doing surveillance, or they're doing some sort of whatever data collection or whatever like that. So we see those. And I don't believe that every one of the crafts are necessarily piloted by
Right.
beings, right?
I agree.
But you also have a situation where you've got craft that allegedly, of course, the people are saying that it crashed. If you look at Roswell, you find out that allegedly there were beings that were associated with that. Those beings went somewhere, for God's
Yeah.
sakes, if they indeed that they were taken.
Right,
So
Pat.
yeah. So
Just saying. It's
when
in
we
chat.
when we
So,
bottom line, when we hear these incredible cases like the Roswell case,
yeah.
or even other cases, why wouldn't they say that they've got these biologics? Where would they have gone? I mean, of course we've had them, and it's continuing to put out the lie that we don't have these things when we did, and
And
so
do. Or
you
do.
know. Kecksburg, there was the object in Kecksburg that came down. Was
Yeah.
it piloted? We don't know. The thing was hauled off by the military, and it is gone. Was there a being in it? We don't know that. There could have been a being in that. There are a lot of these kind of things that have happened over our histories where there's potentially biologics associated with them. And obviously, if you have craft that are maneuvering like these things are being reported to maneuver, well, they're not going to be human, probably. They're going to be
Either
something
that or
else.
they have really found a field that can protect a body,
Big,
right?
big
Because we
time.
can't. Yes.
So the question is, like, what are they? Where the beings like? Did they describe them a certain way? In the case of the Roswell, we believe that they look more like the gray, kind of like beings
Like the
from the
drone
description.
beings.
If you were to look at other cases and stuff like that, well, we've had the Pascagoula case was like this huge like
The
mummy wrap.
Michelin Man.
I'm sorry.
It's like the Michelin Man with
Yeah,
claws.
yeah, it's like the Michelin Man. And then if you look at other cases, they have different shapes. If you look at Kelly Hopkinsville, they were like small
Yes.
little beings that were coming up. They were being shot and had robot kind of like, or like they were hollow metal or something like that when the bullets would hit them. Anyway, the point is that we've had so many diverse kinds of beings that it's often curious to find out if there's any of those that have a certain kind of thing that they're talking about It would be nice to know, right? I mean, it'd be
It
nice to know
would.
if they what did they look like, and how did they determine that they were non-human? Because when you look at the descriptions of a lot of the beings, they're humanoid.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it.
Well, I mean,
You
this
see a
is
being
humanoid. This
with
is
two
humanoid.
eyes,
Yeah.
exactly, with two eyes. Maybe like an indication of ears. Their heads are erect. They're bipedal, like we are.
Yeah.
And so, how do you make the determination that they're non-human? Well,
Yes.
okay, maybe they had different internal organs or something of that nature. But the question here is, it's awfully interesting that somebody from somewhere else looks amazingly like us,
Yes.
right?
Yes, it is. And
Which then goes to the point where if we've seen them all throughout entire recorded history of the Earth, right? Of humans being on Earth, we record seeing these things, and you have Jacques Vallée that's documenting it, and Chris Albeck in their book Wonders in the Sky.
Yes.
You start to find out that, well, wait a minute, these things have been seen throughout history. Maybe they were even here before us. Maybe they're actually doing genetic manipulation of us, and that's what's led to us looking like them, right?
Well, biblically, there are reports in the Bible of that type of Ezekiel left in a spinning chariot, a flying chariot. And there's so many throughout our, and then you go into Egypt if you are interested in the pyramids. The hieroglyphics are people in masks, but there are also beings that look like the people in masks.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're interacting there, and we're documenting that interaction. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall because Phyllis, the owner of Fate, got to interview Sitchin. And that interview is actually on YouTube. So I think that's a civilization that is so interesting because, the tricorders, so much of the Star Trek things were designed to look like what was on the walls in Egypt. It's like, this is so much fun, right?
Yeah.
This is the fun side of ufology, but it's fascinating. Like the Anunnaki looking, being depicted as looking like hippopotami almost, that stuff interests me too. So
sure.
It's a strange world once you start delving into the history of the phenomenon.
Yeah.
And the history of humans feeling like they were interacting with it. Oh, you know what we've got it brought up in chat? Have you seen it?
No.
Johanna has brought up Space Force, and Space Force is different from the 20 and back, right?
So Space Force is was basically put together not as like a combative like thing or something like that. It's mostly about keeping track of what our anti-satellite technology that we've got that the Russians and the Chinese are playing around with.
Yes.
We're concerned about them actually, using weapons in space, and if you have to have an organization in the government that's actually focused on that potential threat.
Yes.
And we, up to this time, we really haven't spent a lot of time with the space domain and looking at that. And so the Space Force and the Space Command and stuff like that is really dedicated towards finding out what we can do to protect ourselves from weapons in space. At the same time, also to monitor what's going on with the Chinese and the Russians in terms of their space motions. If you're with, there's space, everybody's going to space, right? So, are these things you going to using kinetic weapons to blow up satellites? And we've had a number of instances already where we've had satellites that have been either hit or blown up, if you would,
Yes.
in tests, including the United States did that. So we're very much concerned. And if you saw the movie Gravity, you'll realize that any kind of debris in space can cause hazards to things like the International Space Station or other people who are wanting to go into space. And nobody's thinking about the fact that we've got all these 30,000 objects that are up there in space, and we're cluttering
already. Yes,
we're cluttering it. We're much like we're doing with our oceans. We're cluttering space.
Yes.
And then the big question is, how do you get those things down when they are no longer, or they're obsolete? How do you get them down? Do you hurl them out into space? Do you go and you think you're going to get a big bag and try to collect them? No, that's
fishing
not
net. Yeah.
Yeah, big fishing net, and so there's a problem with cleaning up the debris. But the debris actually becomes a threat to us, because the last thing you want is to be out in your car and to be hit by a piece of debris from a satellite that's re-entered improperly and was not actually tracked properly, and it comes down on top of you. So that's what Space Force is about. It's not about, keeping us from aliens or something of that nature, although that would definitely be a big time concern to them, but it's nothing more than that, really, at this point in time.
Are you familiar with the 20+1 program?
20+1? No, I'm not. What is that?
It's I've only heard about it a couple of times. I've talked to people that said that they were part of it, but it's where you sign up. It's a quasi-military, or maybe a military thing, as it's being sold, but where an individual gets assigned to this unit and they leave for 20 years, but when they come back, it's the year before they left. And it's just like this whole big time travel, space exploration kind of thing. But it's fascinating. I just didn't know if you had heard of that or not.
No, I haven't heard of that at all.
Read a couple of...
When I went over to Bologna, Italy for NATO, the big topic at that time was the Space Force, and they were looking at the space domain and what they should be doing in space as well, to protect themselves, to become better, because there's about 3,000 satellites that Europe relies on, which are everything from banking satellites to communication satellites. And if the Russians are going to go out and blow them up, then that becomes a problem for them, And so, what do they need to be able to do to protect themselves? So they're looking at also putting something similar to a Space Force in place.
Right. Well, Tom McNicholas said that, and it's a good point. I hadn't thought of this, but I'm not getting the moon over the mountain in front of me in time to see it before I go to bed. But he brought up that right now there's an asteroid within Earth's gravity, which is actually in the moon's gravity system.
Yeah, it's like that's their second moon. Is that what you?
Yes. Is that
I'm sorry?
Is that going to stay, or is it just in transit?
No, it's just a short period of time, and it's supposed to go moving off, and we won't have any problems with it. But for a short period of time, we actually have the two moons, if you would.
Just fascinating.
Yeah, and then these, obviously asteroids are a big concern in terms of watching those things, because we, if you don't catch one, as you very well know from watching science fiction shows and stuff like that, we could be in a deep amount of doo-doo.
I can't believe you said doo-doo on my show.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I'd throw the doo-doo thing out there, but yeah, I mean, it's like, Deep Impact was a great movie in the context of that type of thing. And what do you do when you have those things? And so we have all these space objects that are out there that are potential threats to us that we've got to be mindful of. And
most of them are our own fault.
Yeah.
What was the name? What was the name of that ancient, great big asteroid that just recently went through, the long one.
Are you
Oumuamua?
Omu, Omumu?
Yes,
Muamua? Muamua.
Oumuamua.
Oumuamua.
I
Yeah,
saw an article this week that said it looks like it's coming back. And I'm like, well, that would be a neat trick because,
yeah, that would definitely indicate that it's something. It's not a big rock, that's for sure. Um,
yeah.
yeah, that's one of those ones where Avi Loeb seems to think that it's extraterrestrial, and then a
Hmm.
lot of the other scientists say no, that he's misinterpreting it, and so you get in this
He's a
like
pretty
back and
smart
forth with
cookie.
science.
He's
Yeah,
a
he
pretty
is.
smart cookie. I would not write him off
Nope.
because, I've also heard him at the SCU conference. So you have so many amazing members and contributors, and you know, I am so fortunate that you allow me to come and play with y'all. It just it's just fascinating. And when I told you about that craft that always stops here, and it's always during the Perseid meteor shower. So
Hmm.
I'm trying to figure out how to film that because Peter had said, well, you can put some cameras up on your deck. I said, I don't think they're going to catch that, because I have light pollution. So, but I'm still going
Hmm.
to try because it was a good idea that he had. And I just, in fact, I sent you that message and said, it's there. It's in Orion's belt. It just parked.
It's just parked up there, huh? Oh.
It comes over and then it stops, and it's almost like something is watching the meteor showers, like having
Mhm.
fun, you know. So
Other people are saying that they're seeing those satellites, that Starlink satellites, in Orion's belt as well.
I've never had that.
Yeah, haven't you?
Usually,
Yeah, yeah. No,
um,
they're saying that they're seeing that those things are parked up, and they tend to report them up in Orion's belt. And I'm going like, or Orion's area, and I'm going
yeah.
like, that's kind of interesting that they're parked up there and
Well, I
they're
didn't
doing
know that they had a parking capability. Alana's
well.
much
That's
better than I thought he was.
yeah. But we do, there are so many geostationary satellites that we use. Our GPS, satellites are parked basically up there, right? They're basically staying in that same position, although they're moving. They're moving equally with the planet Earth, as our rotation, but they stay in that same geosynchronous orbit that we are in. And if a great tool on iPhone is called GeoSat Watch.
Yes, I
And
love
if
that.
you, if you take a look at that tool, you find out, well, wait a minute, you can actually click on the individual satellite and see it, and you can see where its orbit is and stuff like that, and how
I
it's
didn't know it
moving.
would do all that.
Oh yeah, it actually gives you its speed, it gives you its altitude, it gives you a whole variety of interesting in data. Which one of those the satellites that are up there? The Iridium satellites that are
Hmm.
up also create what they call the iridium flare, which a lot of times people can be seeing that and they misinterpret it as an object, but it's
Right.
basically a big flash in the sky that's up there. And it's nothing more than the fact that the satellite has turned and its
Hmm.
solar panels are reflecting the sunlight,
Yeah.
you know, and you can
I
look at
watch.
those things as well.
I use my little Sky Guide app, and because I get so excited when I see satellites, and I'm just like, oh, what? It's just zoom, and you don't comprehend really how fast those suckers are moving. They
Oh,
are
yeah.
they are just humming along.
Yep.
And I when I first realized that that's what I was seeing, because I didn't know, and I took my little Sky Guide out and I put it up there because it shows me everything. And
Sure.
it's the simple one.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun to look up.
It is,
It's just
without a doubt.
cool. And
Yep.
well, we've only got well, we've got about 10 minutes. But what do you think? What do you anticipate? Because I know how analytical you are. I mean, you're not just fun and games. You're pretty amazing in all aspects of your world. But what do you anticipate being the biggest hazard to with the satellites that are up there, the ones that are imperative to our planetary protection or our communication to navigation? What do you think is the biggest existential risk with losing some of these, or you know, what's your take on all this stuff? What do you perceive as being the biggest deal?
Well, that's a good question. And there's so many of these things that we rely on more and more. Let me talk to you about this. You can imagine what GPS would do.
Hmm.
We rely now on GPS for aircraft, their
Yeah,
flight, knowing where
yeah,
they're going, the direction that they're going to go, and where they're going to land. We rely on them for, space, or the Navy uses them, the ships use them, our cars are now, using them, our phones are using them. So if we somehow lose GPS, or there's somehow it's able to be infiltrated and hacked or whatever like that, it's a very big threat. It's a huge threat. It's a huge threat from the standpoint that, again, going back to aircraft that rely on them. Well, what happens if two aircraft collide because their GPS is off or whatever like that? And we do have a problem right now with GPS, and that is, and this is around military locations. So military locations are doing a lot of tests of various kinds of devices, radars, and various other things, which if you actually go to the FAA, you'll find out is causing aircraft to almost not land in the proper locations that they're at.
hmm,
It's throwing off their GPS locations, and it's becoming more and more of a threat. In fact, it's increasing uh, with that whole thing. So there's that I would say is probably the biggest, one of the biggest threats. The other part of that is if we have satellites that we rely on for banking, there's satellites that we rely on for our defense industry. That if we lose those, we might not be able to effectively help defend ourselves.
hmm.
So again, that's why with the us ever increasing number of satellites that we put up. In fact, it's going up incredibly. There are new spaceports that are being built around in every country. There are launches of all kinds of satellites that are going on a daily basis now, where it wasn't like that before. And so as we continue to keep increasing and increasing and increasing and stuff like that, now you've got that up there. And again, the potential is that if you have one collision, that it now creates shards, which suddenly trickles into affecting all the others. I mean, it's just going to be nuts. It could potentially do a lot of damage to a lot of
That's
different
scary.
places. So again, going back to why do we have a space force? They need to be helping us focus on that and to defend against the Russians and the Chinese from using their kinetic weapons or other kinds of weapons to actually hit our GPS or to hit those satellites. And we have a lot of those things now that are parked right next to some of our craft, and they're monitoring it.
Right.
So it's a big time concern, Kat, that we always have to be mindful that not everybody plays in the same sandbox very kindly.
Well, I think that we have had recent evidence of that. So, it's pretty much a crazy mixed up world right now.
Yeah.
And, it's there's always been that danger of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I think we're seeing some of that too. So is I'm trying to be careful because I know that you're still a consultant, and I don't want to cross any lines or be out of, I respect that.
Thank you.
But is the Space Force, I know it's active.
Hmm.
Is it actually like playing a big game of Galaga with the Space Invaders kind of bigger program?
No, I'm not sure. So it's again, a lot of people misinterpret what it really is about. In fact, I did
But I
initially.
mean, how are they defending those satellites? How can they defend those? Because
Well, again, you typically when you identify that there's a threat of something, you then look and you bring in industry to be able to help you to figure out what could be the solution. So if it's, for example, if we have to shield our satellites with a certain thing so we can shield them a certain way, or we have to now put jamming equipment on a satellite so we can jam a signal that's being sent to it from
Mhm.
an enemy or whatever like that. There's a whole host of those defenses that you put in place to be able to
Okay.
do that. And it takes somebody to be focused on that to figure out we need to have that happen. We need to get it
Right.
done. And so Space Force is about getting contractors and industry leaders to help us figure out how do we do this solution to solve our problem so we can protect our investments in space.
That's just so smart.
Yeah. The
You
Army
know,
is about, doing the land mission. The
yeah.
Air Force is about doing the air mission. Well, who's doing the space mission,
Well,
So, I
now we
mean,
got them.
now we have them, right? The Space
Yes.
Command is supposed to be out there helping to protect the
Well,
things we got up there.
I just always, we have grandchildren. We have, adult children. We have so much that we value and we want to protect, and we're looking around going, what kind of world are we living and leaving? What are we leaving for them? And it's always so reassuring. Tom McNicholas, who is one of my favorite people, said, without GPS in my car, I'll be driving in circles. And he's so funny. I love this guy. But
Very
so
true.
he's probably seen me driving back when I didn't have GPS. But not true, because I'm really good. I'm a very good sky reader and I'm a good navigator, so it helps. And he said they always say keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So
Yep.
there you go.
Good
He's
point.
solving all of our problems here. But it's just one of those things. This has been a great chat. Thanks, guys. I'm glad that y'all enjoyed Rich as much as I do. I'm always so excited when I'm going to get to talk to you, because I inevitably learn stuff that I didn't know, right? And you're so generous with how you share that. You answer all of my questions, and you don't make me feel like a goober for asking them. But I figured that if I don't know, then my listeners aren't going to know. And how often do you get to talk with people with your background and, you know, end your joy for life? You make things fun for the people that get to interact with you. And I appreciate being one of those people.
Oh,
So
it's always a pleasure, Kat. I mean, I really enjoyed talking to you. You're just a warm, fuzzy person that I just love to hug and,
thank you.
send a hug. And I was thrilled that you came to the conference that time where I could actually get to see you. I mean, and meet
Yeah.
you, as opposed to this kind of thing. And I'm also, just
Well,
want
we're
to point out,
video. It's our
yeah,
first time to video.
I was just saying we haven't done this before.
No.
My other times where we were just talking, without the video, and now we have the
Yeah.
video. So it's
So
actually great, and I enjoy it so much. But again, thank you for having me on, and I I just love the heck out of you, and
Yeah.
and I'm glad that I
Ditto.
can help keep educating people on the topic that I've been spending most of my life on, and you know,
It has been your
it's
life's
a
work.
yeah, it has been my life's work without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, the work that's the fun for you,
Yeah,
the fun side of it.
that's right.
So, but I am coming next year, and
All right.
I am so I can't believe I didn't get to be there. So I'm ready, ready, ready. But well, I mean, it is because it's such a smart conference, and when I've had questions after a conversation, you know, they always provide answers. And I've gotten to listen to people that I wouldn't have had access to otherwise. It's
Sure.
just a brilliant, brilliant conference. And, you know, for everyone listening, it's a Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies. They have an annual conference, and you can attend um, by video. You can
Yes.
attend online. And if you're interested in any of the things that Rich has discussed, there's always someone who has information to share. And once you have signed up for that conference, how long do they get access to the videos?
We typically do it 3 months that they have that. So, 3 months if you missed the show or something like that, or if you're in a different time zone or something like that, and
Mhm.
you're on travel or whatever like that, you can listen to it. And they're just incredible things. I keep going back to them even now,
Yeah.
um, to refer to them. But it's really a good thing. And then also we've got on YouTube, on our SCU YouTube page, all of the presentations from the previous conferences. So
So
if
I
you
did
if
not know that.
yeah, you could look at the past years. We put them up there for you to be able to see. Our website is explorescu.org.
Hmm.
There's a contact page if you ever want to get a hold of us or something like that, or if you want to send your data on your sighting, you could do that through the contact page as well. But anyway, you get a hold of me easily that way. But anyway, go check it out. I mean, go look at it, just Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, SCU, or whatever like that in YouTube.
Yeah.
And there you go. I mean, they're all there.
Well, there's a lot of those that I'm going to be hitting because when I wasn't able to be there, you have so many people that I love learning from. So
Yep.
go SCU, Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies, hit that up because I'm telling you, you're going to learn so much really cool stuff. And you're going to have fun doing it. So, and you'll be amazed at what you didn't know because I always am every time. So, well, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
we will do this again. I just so enjoy you. And I'm glad that technology and schedules did not ruin this because I was getting so worried.
Oh
So,
no, I'm glad that it didn't run it either. So
uh, well,
I'm
like I
just
said, I probably should have just stopped by your house and done it
you
live
could have done that.
with all of the stuff that was going on. I drove right by there, but
Oh my God.
it was funny. But thank you again. I appreciate
Thanks.
you. And good night, chat. We
Yeah, good
appreciate
night,
you.
everybody.
Good night.